So this chart might not mean much to students right away, but there's a handful who really do appreciate looking at something and seeing how the middle years program is actually broken down. So that would be the first column. And so you have a row for the constructivist approach to learning, areas of interaction, significant concepts, and unit questions, thinking skills, assessment, socializing, creativity, specialized knowledge. So with each of those, students can kind of get an idea as to what is expected of them in this middle years program. Many of them won't ever read it or care about it, but I appreciate having the reminder on my wall for while I'm teaching, and there are a handful of students who do appreciate looking at it. So the second column is looking at how to foster creativity through the students. So it's reminding us that students should be encouraged to learn in meaningful contexts, manage uncertainty, so that would be similar to what we're doing here with our open-ended questions. So the idea that open-ended questions are incredibly important for creativity, so having the thought process explained or verbalized, but managing that uncertainty so that students don't end up overwhelmed. You can't ask them a huge, overbearing question because they'll be so swamped that they won't actually know where to start. So the concept that we'll get to in a second is the idea of scaffolding these open-ended questions, which sounds counterintuitive in that open-ended questions, in theory, shouldn't be scaffolded. It should be left to the student. But by adding some light-leveled scaffolding there, it can actually help prevent the level of uncertainty getting overwhelming. So it also highlights that students should be inquiring into their interests, take an interdisciplinary approach to inquiry. So the idea of science falling into the math class and vice versa, or into the English class, and so on. So inquire into open-ended questions for an extended time. So same idea with managing uncertainty. Our open-ended questions should be allowed to sit in their level of uncertainty for an extended period of time. So rather than us rushing to the student's aid immediately and giving them the answer and moving on because it's taking time, we should let them sit with that uncertainty for longer to let them actually have the concept sink in and make them think about it. So they should also be seeing teachers as role models in creativity. Connections between subjects. So like I said earlier, the idea that math and science shouldn't be two defined subjects more than a continuum. Same with science and English. Socials is a little bit more obscure, but can be brought in this idea of like the history of the science that you're actually paying attention to in the given unit. And then arts can also flow that way as well. So they should be developing dispositions, not only skills for effective inquiry, so the idea that they should know the process as well as the skills. They should be generating and developing questions, identifying the problem, and then coming up with solutions that are logical. So they might not be the most direct solutions depending on the group of students you have, but they should be in some way logical, or the student should be able to defend their solution. The assessment should be creative, so they shouldn't be the same thing over and over again. They should be able to analyze and critique their own ideas so that problems can be reformulated and a creative solution developed. So being able to take a problem and then rework it so that they can actually come up with a solution if it's not clear straight away. So they should be collaborating and self-assessing and reflecting on themselves frequently. Not a surprise with the IB program. That's a frequent theme here. Students need to be learning in groups. They need to communicate with one another based on what they're learning, which is becoming more and more of a important part of the education system, as the jobs that are available are almost always in group type scenarios. They should be understanding each subject and the methods to find out the knowledge and information that they need when they're researching, and develop an expertise and creativity in several fields of knowledge. So not just being limited to one way of thinking. So a student might be under the impression that they learn best hands-on, and that's fantastic, and they would excel at that type of learning, but at the same time they shouldn't be limited to just doing hands-on style activities. They need to be able to excel in and develop in their other skill set. So just because somebody likes the hands-on approach, they do need to be able to manage in an auditory style learning as well, just for an example. So not being pinholed, essentially.